Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today we're going to talk about one lesson I've learned in particular as a coach this year. We'll also talk about the Division One conference realignments, and I'll wrap up the show with the current state of women's sports. So without further ado, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome once again to the show. Welcome to episode number 30. This is crazy. It's going to be a wild summer. I've got some amazing guests coming your way and hopefully some great content, advice, just continuing to add value to your life, whether you're a coach, parent, player, whatever, or just simply a fan of the show. So anyway, with that being said, I'm jumping into our first topic, and that is this one lesson that I've learned specifically this year. I've coached for quite a few years now, rather. I have a travel softball team of my own that I started back in 2019. A lot of you know that. But here's one lesson that I've learned this year more than others. And that one lesson is to continue reevaluating your players as the season goes. And the reason that's important, and I want to shed some light on that, maybe for the coaches out there, even the players who need some reassurance that they're not getting overlooked, is that I feel like that is a huge deal, mainly because you just kind of never know what will materialize for a ball player throughout the course of a season, right? So, I take account the eye test, right? Like what is that player showing you today, right? Or at practice? Are they showing up for practice, right? Are they fully committed to the grind? Obviously, like those are cues that you want to take a look at, obviously. But in the game itself, like in tournament play or whether you're in college playing doubleheaders or whatever the case may be, like what's going on and what are your eyes telling you when you're seeing, the game play out on the ball field, right? The other piece is the stats, right? I think the stats, numbers don't lie. Now, numbers can tell a multitude of stories, but they don't lie, right? And so the important piece on that front is that I feel like you don't want to get too locked in on just the numbers by themselves because that could kind of jade your vantage point a little bit. However, numbers are critical and they're important. And I told you guys before, there's stats out there that I love to see. Like one is contact percentage. It's kind of an advanced metric. But one of the obvious ones that I love is the on-base percentage stat, right, for your hitters. So again, just the eye test, the stats, those are things that I'm looking at. But I think it's important also to take a look at what players are doing during clutch time, right? When I say clutch time, like the game's on the line, or maybe it's a 2-out scenario or even a 2-strike scenario. Like there's moments of minimal pressure. Sometimes it's maximized, but there's moments of little pressure points throughout the game itself that can take place where a player is thrusted into that that limelight, so to speak, and they're expected to perform in that moment, right? Because their name's been called, their spot in the order is up to bat, the ball's been hit to them, the ball's been given to them in the circle, whatever the case may be. What are they doing in the clutch when the team needs them the most in that moment, right? So those are factors that I look at as a coach in terms of me being able to evaluate a player throughout the course of a season, because the production that a player may not have been giving us early on, she may be providing that for us now, right? Or vice versa, even. And the reason I say that I've had to learn that more this year is because the team that we have constructed right now, with my Elite Diamonds Gold team that I get the pleasure of coaching. I've got 15 really solid, really sharp young ladies that I get a chance to work with. And the thing though is that they haven't been like teams past. And what I'm saying there is that what is this, team number 11? I resort back to team 9, for example. Team 9 was a very unique group. It was a fun group. It was my gosh, it had everything. It had everything. It was a well diverse group, and it was one of the funnest teams I was able to coach. it was also the team with the highest of expectations because it was at that time it was the best team that we had constructed, right? However, with that group of girls, everybody had their place, and you could roll out of bed and know what the lineup would look like as a coaching staff. You could roll out of bed and know what the defense would look like behind this pitcher, right? Or on the back of this catcher, right? And so again, or okay, if she's not in the lineup, who's immediately inserted there, right? And so it was almost cookie cutter esque, so to speak, with Team 9, but Team 11 and even teams 10 and 11, Team 11 more so, you don't know. And that has been a beautiful thing to see unfold. And I know that sounds weird, maybe because it's like, man, that's kind of more work for coaches. And it is. It has been more work. It's been more stressful, but it's also been more fun because I'm getting that opportunity to kind of plug and play and see what works. And that's also, again, back to my main point, forcing me to reevaluate the players on our roster and see, okay, what are they doing? Players who may not have been in the starting nine at the beginning of the year are batting in the middle of the lineup now. And players who I had in the 7 or 8 hole, they're producing at the 1 or 2 spot, right? Or players that we had as leadoffs, they're coming through now in the bottom of the order, rolling it back up to the top of the order, right? So there's different little nuances with that I'm having to kind of focus on myself and our staff. And again, it's the eye test, it's the stats, it's the whole nine. And I just want to harp on one player in particular. I don't think she'd mind me doing this, but Mackenzie Burnett. She's getting ready to leave us and head off to college to Brunel University, and I've gotten the opportunity to be in her life for a number of years now. And I'm not gonna get emotional, but but Mac, man, she is one who Coach Jay and myself, Coach Jay, my father-in-law, girls call him Coach Jay. He's on our staff with Elite Diamonds as well. And we've always kind of called her the bulldog, even before this year. Like she just kind of has that bulldog mentality. She's a go-getter. She's just gonna go, 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 go until you have to pull her back, right? You have to reel her in. Otherwise, she's just gonna go, and she's gonna be in attack mode, and she's virtually unfazed, honestly. And so, but recently, you've kind of noticed when she gets pissed off, which is a beautiful thing to watch. I'm like, all right, we're seeing that swagger come out a little bit, but like ultimately, though, Mac is that bulldog. But my point with her, bringing her up is that she has been a player that has been in our starting nine all year. However, she's been towards the bottom half of our lineup, which she's given amazing production out of that slot, which has been big for us because you can't have a lineup with just 4 people in it, 5 people, right? You got to have 1 through 9 or 10 or 11 or however many you may be batting. And so Mac has given great production regardless of where she's been in that lower half of the lineup. But here's the reality. There was a point this year, I think it was back in April or May, where we had just a mixture of players that were not in the lineup. I'm like, hey, listen, Mac, I need you to bat leadoff. All right. And maybe for a second she blinked an eye, but after that it was like, okay, I got it. And she had a great tournament that weekend. But she has been one that I've floated throughout the entire lineup. She batted 2 hole last weekend, and y'all, I'm telling you, man, she got MVP again, back to back weekends of MVP. And so again, I know it doesn't always work out that way. Like sometimes you call a player's number as a coach, and it doesn't pan out, and that's fine. That's part of it. But for Max specifically, she's been able to play the role that I've needed her to play for our team this year, and it's been really cool to watch because it's like, hey, coach, whatever you need from me, I got it. And she's not asking questions. She's just, I got it, done deal. You know what I mean? So, and by the way, she's a top 2, top 3 pitcher on our staff. She plays middle infield as well. So anyway, all that to say, a little brag on Mac, but back to my main point there of I think it's incredibly important for us coaches to reevaluate players along the way because you just don't want to use those preconceived notions or early season evaluations as the only metric moving forward, right? For example, Coco, another player of ours, like she's been a staple at shortstop, but I think she's played the least amount of shortstop this season than she ever has. And when we've used her in other places, she's always been a great utility player for us. But she's played 2 through 9 this year, just as she has in years past. However, we've got Kira and K-Mac, who are also very serviceable, more than serviceable shortstops. And so we're 3 deep at shortstop this year, which we've never been that deep at that position ever. And again, it's reevaluating Coco's value on that front of, okay, well, is Coco better for the team at short this game? Maybe. Is she better for the team behind the plate? Is she better at first base? Which she always laughs or jokes. She's like, "Do you want us to lose?" When I put her at first base, which she could probably play first base at the collegiate level just fine if I'm being real about that. But anyway, all that to say, she's great in the outfield. She's a great utility player for the team. But again, reevaluating that throughout the course of the season is a big deal. On the flip side of it, her bat at the plate, she's been solid. I think she would admit that she hasn't been as solid as she would like to be. Therefore, we've had to make adjustments the last couple of tournaments, and that's okay, right? But my point there, guys, is that don't go in and say, "Hey, Coco's your shortstop," and that's it. That's there's no negotiating from there. I think it's important when you have a team like the team that we have right now with Team 11 for Elite Diamonds Gold, where you have multiple players who can play multiple positions at a high level, and they can give you something good almost regardless of where you place them. Be willing to let those players do what they do at those different positions. So again, I feel like I've harped on that enough. I want to kind of move on, but I hope that makes sense to you coaches out there, and for you players, I hope that that gives you hope as well. That if you know that your coach is already doing that, like maybe you're not in the starting nine, right? And that's some of us. That's the case, right? Like some of us are not in the starting nine. Like unless you just have 9 players on your team, some of you are not going to be on the starting roster. So what does that mean? That means that if you're in practice, you're giving the effort, you're fully committed, and you're making gains in practice, and then you're making the most of the opportunities that you're getting in a game to produce. Then who knows? Maybe that evaluation is one that is going to benefit you. Another one, Kaylee Stewart, Smiley. We call her Smiley on our team. She hasn't always been right in the thick of the lineup, right? But man, I think last week she bat in the 4 or 5 hole or whatever, and she's been dang near as consistent as they come at the plate, right? And again, everybody has off games, everybody has really high games, and so I'm looking for consistency as a coach, and I know there's plenty of coaches out there who are looking for the same exact thing. Therefore, for you players out there, again, dropping a bomb here or there is great, but if you're striking out the other half of the time, then you're probably not going to find yourself in the everyday starter role. You may find yourself in more of a pinch hitting situation or a DH or whatever the case may be. And again, that's okay. That's your role. All right. So anyway, I hope that gives you guys hope on that front as a player and as coaches. I hope that makes sense to you as well, and maybe taking that to heart and using it to your advantage. Okay, so what's next? All right, so let's talk about one topic that I wanted to bring up this because it has not really grown into a pet peeve. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but it has grown into something that I feel like is worthy enough to talk about with you guys. And again, I kind of pull things from the season. I pull things from watching college ball and now watching pro softball too, and obviously baseball. And this one piece here is batting with the runners in scoring position. And of course, if you know the game and know the stats and all that jazz, you call that RISP, runners in scoring position. All right, so batting with runners in scoring position, that's like runners at second and third, or second or third, whichever. Okay. When you're batting with runners in scoring position, here's one thing you cannot do. Okay, you cannot strike out. That is just absolutely, in my opinion, a wasted opportunity for you to do damage, is what I call that. All right, and you definitely cannot do it with freaking less than 2 outs. Okay, so less than 2 outs, that is a low pressure situation on you. Again, unless the game is on the line and it's kind of one of those pressure moments, obviously. But if it's less than 2 outs, we're middle of the game, beginning of the game, whatever. We got ducks on the pond in scoring position. You got to come through with contact. Like contact is king, or in softball, contact is queen in that sense, right? Like you have got to put the ball in play right there. And guys, fine, you're going to strike out from time to time, but a called third strike is off the table. 1,000,000%. It's off the table. It can't even scratch the surface as an option. And we can talk about umpire strike zones and how good and bad they can be, or inconsistent or consistent that they can be, or what have you. But regardless, you have to come through right there by making contact. We're not asking for a base hit. I'm just asking for contact. Okay. Now again, does a ground ball back to the pitcher, getting you out at first base to run, stay still, does that produce anything? No. But at least you made contact. And you never know. Like when you put the ball on the ground, like three good things have to happen for the defense, right? She's got to field it cleanly. She's got to make a good throw to get you out. And the first baseman or whomever is on the receiving end has to make a good catch, right? So three good things have to happen right there when you put the ball in play on the ground. That's all I'm saying, right? So with runners in scoring position, guys, I encourage you to do a couple of things. All right, if you struggle with that, right, here's one thing you can do. You can choke up on that bat and shorten your swing. Okay, you can make, if you're a slapper, or if you're somebody that bats on the left side and you got good speed, right, slow your eyes down. If you're the type of player, I've had Maddie Speaks on the show back in season 1. You know, things are better when she's moving, right? She seems to make more contact more often when she's moving, like when she's actually in the slapping motion versus standing still. Cool. If that's you, do that. But you need to resort to whatever makes you the most comfortable in that moment with 2 strikes. That's all I'm saying, especially with runners in scoring position. 2 strikes, runners in scoring position, do what's going to allow you to make the most contact. Your head should never fly out. Okay, you should not be looking at your third baseman if you're a righty. All right, all with 2 strikes. We don't need the home run swing in that moment. Again, we need contact. And so, again, I think that's one thing that I feel like I want to see us as a community of softball and baseball hitters be better at. Because, and I'm saying this as a former pitcher, right? As a pitcher, those are tough moments to be in, right? Where you've got ducks on the pond and it's already less than 2 outs. So it's going to require a step 2 to get you out of the inning, or potentially 3 if there's nobody out, right? So either way, the likelihood of you giving up a run right now is kind of high. And so because of that, there's pressure on the pitcher already. So do not give her or him, that pitcher, that opportunity to work him or herself back into the inning without allowing any runs. You got to make sure there's a run that scores before we get 2 outs. That's all. That's got to be the mission. All right. Now on the flip side of that, again, we can always talk about this from 2 different perspectives. As pitchers, yes, that is a pressure moment for you, and so now your job is to produce out pitches, right? What pitch is going to get you out of this inning? What type of pitcher are you? Are you a pop-up pitcher, a fly ball pitcher? Are you a ground ball pitcher? You go to your best stuff at this point, and you make sure that you manipulate that batter into putting the ball in. If they're going to put it in play, they need to put it in play where you want them to put it in play. All right. If you can't strike them out, then that ground ball needs to be a ground ball to second base or a ground ball to third base or wherever it needs to be, so that you can put yourself in position to give up the least amount of runs as possible if you're going to give up any. So anyway, that's my tidbit on that front, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to jump back in and share with you about these conference realignments. Also, the open book segment is back in action, so we're going to talk about that today as well, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So, man, college softball was at an all-time high this year, and if you, man, I told y'all all year that you needed to tune in. So if you didn't tune in, shame on you, because I told you that you needed to tune in. But if you did, y'all, I know you got every bit of softball that you could possibly get. You got big names, little names, everything in between, all around the country, just showing out. And this was an amazing season, right? It ended in Oklahoma Sooners Boomer Sooner 4-peat, which is fine, like whatever, like it's cool, great for them, that's awesome. However, there's still so many other storylines out there that took place this season. And speaking of storylines, you got the off-season storyline right now, that looming one. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but Nyjah Kennedy is still in the transfer portal. She is leaving Stanford, and she's in the transfer portal. There are a number of teams, apparently 6 or 7 or so, that have a shot. The question is, will she go to Oklahoma, or will she land somewhere else? I want to know that from you guys. Will she end up as a Sooner, or will she find herself, elsewhere? Anyway, let's talk about these conference realignments real quick, because I think this is going to absolutely change the landscape of the way that things are going to go moving forward. And I believe that things are going to get even more competitive. Specifically, with now football is a different breed, different animal. We're not talking about football right now. I'm just talking about softball specifically. You've got Oklahoma and Texas both now joining the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, and that is going to make every single SEC series already a big deal, right? But that's going to amplify it more so, because you've got two powerhouse teams. Obviously, these were the last two teams standing in the Women's College World Series this year and a couple of seasons ago. And I don't believe that either of them are going really anywhere. I know that OU is losing like 10 players or something crazy like that, but they got Patty Gasso, and they've got the pedigree there, so I don't believe that they're going to take too much of a dip as they join the SEC. I just believe that their regular season is going to be tougher. Therefore, it's going to be intriguing to see how Patty Gasso builds that program to compete in the SEC. That's all I'm saying on that front. Texas, I think they're built already to compete in the SEC. I just think that it's what they're going to retool with will be important. But the pitching staff, Tegan Kavan, I think she's going to be stellar. I think she's going to compete for Play of the Year honors over the next couple of seasons. That's just my tidbit and my prediction about Kavan. Okay, so the ACC, this is a very interesting one. The ACC is getting Cal, Stanford, and SMU. SMU is Southern. Is it Southern Methodist? Something Methodist, not something Methodist. Anyway, SMU is in Texas. Okay, and they're joining the ACC, which is the Atlantic Coastal Conference here on the East Coast. And they're also getting, like I said, Cal and Stanford. Now, the Cal and Stanford situation is coming because of the breakup of the Pac-12, right? You had 12 teams out in the Pac-12. Now there's basically the Pac-2 with Oregon State and Washington State both remaining there. But the other 10 teams exited stage left. And Cal and Stanford were 2 of those. That's going to be odd. I'm gonna be honest with you, because The other however many teams, 14, 15, 16 teams that are in the ACC are all over here, meaning on the East Coast, right? And it goes all the way up the coast to like Virginia, I believe, and then down to Miami. So just those conference series are just going to be rough, man, on travel. I feel with specifically for Cal and Stanford, who are having to travel, to the East Coast half the season, basically. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that, but either way, Texas they should be okay, but or SMU rather they should be okay. But I just feel like that Cal and Stanford move to the ACC is going to be an interesting one. I do believe, from a competitive standpoint, Cal is going to get more limelight than they have in the past. I personally believe that, and I think that Stanford, although they're losing Kennedy, I don't really believe that they're going to go anywhere. I don't know that they'll be as good as they have been in the past. However, I think they're still going to be a top 25 team. So there's that. Four other teams joined that from the Pac-12 joined the Big Ten. You had Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington. These are big moves because, of course, the Big Ten that you've got Michigan, Iowa, those programs, more so this side of the country, more close to the East Coast or whatever. So again, travel is still going to be an issue. I think Maryland may even be in that conference too, if I'm not mistaken. So you know, travel is always going to be, I imagine, a topic of conversation, even on the football side of things too. So that's I'm going to set that box aside for a second because that is what it is. However, I think from a competitive matchup standpoint, though, this is going to make for must see TV. Like I think the 2025 college softball season, every single weekend, as if it already was not a big one, every single weekend gets that much more amplified. The top 25, I think, is going to shake and bake regularly every week. I don't believe that you're honestly going to see the top 5, 7, 8 teams stay right there for very long all the time because of just them beating up on each other. I don't believe that it's going to be. I don't think you're going to have that one team that is just head and shoulders above everybody in their conference, right? Now, could it end up being Oklahoma again in the end? Yes, for sure. And I'm not going to bet against Patty Gasso right this second. However, I do believe there are other SEC programs who can knock off OU in a regular season series, and I think it can happen multiple times depending on the draw that they get. Same thing with Oregon and Washington and UCLA, man. Like they're coming along too. So it's going to be intriguing to watch what unfolds with these conference realignments. I'm excited to see that. So anyway, segueing to my travel softball program real fast. Just a quick plug for them. The Elite Diamonds Gold team specific. Let me actually. We have two teams: Elite Diamonds Gold and Elite Diamonds Blue. Elite Diamonds Blue, man, they won it all a couple of weekends ago in their 18U division, and then last weekend, Blue and Gold were in the same exact tournament, and so it ended up being the two of us actually in the end, and Gold was able to come away with the victory in that championship game. But man, our blue team has been playing great softball, and we're going into our World Series down in Panama City Beach, Florida, coming up. That starts on July 15th. So we're really pumped about that. And I think our blue team has hit its stride at the right time. So anyway, excited about that. But segueing again to our gold team, though, just to shed some light on them, man, they have crushed the month of June. Like last month, y'all, they finished 14-1-1. Yeah, 14-1-1. That was over the course of 3 tournaments, and they won all 3. And so it just I'm so proud of them. They and wins and losses don't necessarily dictate the level of proudness that I have for our teams. However, man, it's really cool when you're able to watch them walk off the field with smiles, feeling good about the performance that they put on display after a long day at the fields. They typically we start at 8, 9 in the morning. sometimes a little bit earlier than that, and a lot of times we don't, get done till after dark. And so because of that, that's a lot of a grind. I challenged them in practice over the course of, June. Basically, when we got back from Oklahoma City, we had 3 straight weekends of ball, which meant 3 straight weeks of practice. And, some of them may have been cussing me with what we had to do in practice during that stretch. But I felt like we got better as a team, and they got better mentally, and they got tougher mentally over that stretch, and they pushed their bodies a little bit more. So anyway, really, really proud of them. All that to say, we have 9 seniors who are all heading off to college. Minus one, minus Mo. She's gonna be engaged with cosmetology and locked in on that front, going to cosmetology school here pretty soon. Super jazzed up about her. But the others are going off to play college softball, which ultimately means that we got to retool. And because of that, we got to retool. This episode is coming out a couple of days prior to our tryouts, which is July 7th and 8th at 3 p.m. in Eatonton. So if you want to take a look at that, or if you know somebody that is in the 18U range or 15 to 18 years old that wants to play softball around this area, we are going to have our tryouts on those 2 days. We're on Instagram and Facebook as Elite Diamond Softball, so you can get some more information there. Just a quick plug for our program, and also, like I said, just a lot of excitement for our ladies and them being able to pretty much cap off an incredible season, incredible year as we head into the World Series down in PCB. So anyway, all that to say, jumping into the open book segment, it is back after quite a few episodes of being gone. We've just had a lot going on. Okay, we haven't had time really to fit in the open book segment into the show, but here we are today. We're doing that. I've got 3 questions for you. All 3 questions. So I had to go back and dig these up. All 3 of these questions are centered around me as a coach, I guess. And so this first one is from a gentleman. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, actually. But anyway, their name is Perry D. And the question is, do you coach with your heart or your head? And as I read this question, and I didn't take a lot of time to prep for it, really, but I thought about that question a little bit before the show. And honestly, I coach with both, because I coach in my head, or my heart rather, because I genuinely love and care about like the human beings that I'm coaching, right? But at the same token, I coach with my head as well, because it's like, hey, listen, we gotta put this and this and strategize this together to be able to put the team in best position to succeed, right? So I I'm both. You know what I mean? Some coaches may be like, hey, listen, I'm strictly X's and O's. Like, I don't really care about like the feelings of the player in moments, and I'm kind of like that as well. Like feelings, I put them aside in certain scenarios. But again, I'm an emotional kind of person in any way. So I guess I coach with both. I'll say that. And also when thinking about that now that I'm talking through it, I also think about like from a travel ball standpoint, I'm always trying to help our girls and not only get better with their games, but there's also the recruiting side of things now, where you're trying to help them get to the next level. So there's a balance between team and individual, right? And showcasing individual, but is that coming at the detriment of the team too, right? So I think that's a give and take piece right there, because I've always been everybody plays. I'm that kind of guy. Like in pool play, everybody gets an opportunity to play, and even in bracket play this year, more than any other year I've ever coached, everybody's on the field defensively in bracket play when we have the opportunity to have, free substitutions on defense. Everybody may not be in the lineup in bracket play, but anyway, all that to say, I coach with both. That would be my answer. All right, this one is from Darius L. And Darius asks, what's your favorite time of the season as a coach? Definitely not this time of year, because this is a time of year where, like I just said, I'm an emotional guy already. And because I love my people and I care about them and I enjoy coaching them a lot, I don't want it to end. I mean, y'all, I cried so much last year when that group. I'm done. I'm not gonna talk about that anymore. Anyway, so but I would say that the beginning of spring season, because that's when I get to do spring training weekend, which is one of my favorite weekends with our ball club. I know a lot of you have watched the show in the past. You've heard me talk about spring training weekend and how, rigorous slash good that can be for our players. And but that's also the time where they're trying to find, just they're trying to knock off the rust off their games, but they're trying to find each other, gel a little bit, feeling out the vibes, making sure that we can, move forward with the chemistry, because usually we schedule about 12 tournaments for the spring season. So, we got a haul that's coming up usually that time of year, which is basically February, that between March through July, we got 12 tournaments. And so we want to be able to kind of find out the right combinations. It's just that time to really feel things out. So I like that more than anything else. I think time of year wise. Okay, last one before the break is from Erica R. And I had to include this one because she's like, when are you gonna ask my question, with an attitude, might I add. Anyway, so but her question is, what's your go-to meal for game day? All right, and my players are probably gonna roll their eyes if they're listening to this section, because they're like, well, he doesn't eat. Well, I listen. In my defense, I just, when I'm locked in and I'm focused, I don't really have hunger. Therefore, I don't eat a lot. I'll be honest with you. There have been days, tournament days, where I'll go the whole day without eating anything, which I know is really, really bad. And I don't even know how I do that, because my metabolism is so high to where, like, on a normal day, like, I'm hungry right now, and I ate right before the show. So, with that being said, like, I don't know how I do that, but my level of focus, I guess, is just so acute on those days to where I don't eat a bunch. But I will say that this year, more than any other year, I have done really, really well about drinking an exceptional amount of water, and staying hydrated, and doing all the things that I ask my girls to do throughout the day. So I will say that. I'm proud of myself on that front. So anyway, that is the final and third and final open book segment question. We're going to take one more break. When I jump back in, I'm just going to give you my off the cuff opinion on the current state of women's sports right now. I'll wrap it up with a thought you should know moment, and we'll get you guys out of here. Okay, guys, welcome to the show one last time. So, as I mentioned before the break there, I want to talk about real fast the current state of women's sports, not just softball, but basketball, soccer, volleyball, just the whole state of women's sports, gymnastics, everything. I know the Olympics is coming up as well, which I'm pumped up about. I'm going to do a whole segment on the Olympics in a couple of weeks. But here's my raw, uncut, just unfiltered thought of women's sports right now. It is off the chain, and it is in an amazing place. And I pray and hope that we keep it there. Not no, excuse me. I pray and hope that we continue to elevate it so much so that it becomes part of the fabric of everyday sports. Right? It's not just like its own little thing. Like ESPNW is a thing on like Instagram or social media. I like it, but I don't. We don't need it. Eventually, I want to not need it. Right? I want it just to be normal. I want it to be normal, a normal thing for us. Right? To all just celebrate it, love it, and I'm not saying force feed people. Right? But I want the fan bases to be so elevated to where the games of women's sports are just off the charts. Right? Because I think we are heading in that direction, and I absolutely love it, right? And I know I don't want to talk about too much of the negatives or whatever that have come with it, but I know that there are some negatives that have come with the rise of women's sports, and one of those has been just some tension with like fan bases, right? And here's the thing about that for a second. The tension with fan bases is not like the tension that we have with men's sports. For example, in the NBA, if you follow it, Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers, they'll never be friends, right? Like that's not a thing. But that's about teams, right? Which different players come through each of those organizations each and every year, right? But that's a team thing. You even on the individual level where you have like the Peyton Manning, which is always going to be my all-time favorite quarterback, and then Didi, who I've had on the show in the past, like Tom Brady is his guy, right? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady fans, that's not a normal thing, right? So again, you've got your New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, Cubs, Cardinals, whatever the case may be, right? Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas. I'm going on and on. You've got those rivalries on the men's sports side of things sometimes, and they don't get hostile, right? I feel like in some areas, in which you guys know where I'm going with this, like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, women's basketball's gotten a little hostile a little bit, right? And then so what I would encourage our listeners of the show is that listen, it's okay. It's okay to love your person. You don't have to hate the other one, right? Because the reality is, man, we are all pitching in to elevate the women's game. And so we don't have to tear it down by trying to be a fan of somebody so much so that you got to poo poo the other people. Like, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't try to blow out my flame to make your flame look bigger, right? Just freaking throw some wood on your flame. I'm going to throw some wood on mine and we're going to keep rolling. I'm going to do this thing together. Before you know it, this whole thing is just in flames and we're just having a lot of fun with it, right? And so at the end of the day, though, guys, the reason I also know and feel that the women's sports and the women's game is in a great place is because of the investors, right? You follow the money trail. If you read about it, if you research it, whatever, like people are legitimately wanting to invest in teams and they're wanting to advertise with teams and they're wanting to, NIL deals with players on the women's side of things. Like there's so much of that going on right now. If the money's there, the game is in a great place. The state of the union is in a great place, right? So I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. But I absolutely love where women's sports is. I hope that all of our listeners, in some capacity, are either coaching the games, playing the games, or watching the games, supporting the games in some way, because women's sports is off the charts right now, and it deserves the love and attention that it has been getting over the last couple of years. So let's keep the ball rolling. All right, I'm gonna wrap up this show, guys, with a thought you should know moment. And if you got a notepad, maybe write these down. But either way, this is probably to 2017, I believe. Yeah, 2017. I'm at a conference, business conference, and a guy is speaking, and he's just he's talking about leaders with influence, right? And he's talking about this concept of being in a leadership position does not make you a leader, right? What you do with that ultimately makes you a leader. Like you actually having an impact, having an influence on the people that you're leading, right? And he talked about these 7 qualities that make up a leader with influence, and I thought they were worthy of mentioning. And and honestly, I saw this earlier this week because I was just going back reading my notebook, and again, I think I've said this before. Like one of the most important books that you'll ever read, aside from the Bible, is, if you're a believer, is your notebook, right? And so I go back and read some of my business notebooks, usually every month, because there's just good stuff in there that I've written down. And I don't want to forget it, and I want to be able to reapply it if needed or whatever. So anyway, all that to say, leaders with influence do these 7 things very well, and they don't forget them. One of them is that they give when they don't have to. 2, they care for others. The next one is that they grow personally, spiritually, mentally on a continuous basis. 4, they live authentically. Like I can't express to you guys how important this one is to me. Like I try every day to be the most authentic person possible. Like in the room, ever. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I don't have to be the most good looking person in the room. I'm definitely not that, right? But I want to be the most authentic person in every space that I'm in. And that's not even me trying to do that. That's just me being me. And you being you. Like I would encourage you guys to just buy into being authentic. Like don't try to be what the world says you need to be or like whatever. Like just be you, you know? But the 5th one is they empower other people. And again, guys, I could spend an hour on each of these probably. The 6th one is that they manage hardship. And I think that this is a critical one to just elaborate on as well, is that as a leader with influence, there are moments of hardship, there's moments of trials and tribulations that you and your team will be faced with. Great leaders manage that very well. And it's not that they're perfect at it, but they manage it. They put the people in the right place. They lower temperature levels and they make sure that the group, the team, the whole collaboration of people, regardless of what space you may be in, you get through it and you get to the other side of it. So anyway, that's the 6th one. And then the last one is that they serve with humility. And honestly, that's me through and through. Not a braggadocious kind of person at all. And I'm also very humble. And I kind of joke that I'm cocky about being humble because I am. But serving people humbly with humility is something that I will always buy into. My parents have instilled that into me. Business partners have instilled that into me, and that's something that I firmly believe in. And that's exactly the way that I coach my travel softball team. Is that I believe in serving them. I serve them and their families, and it's a beautiful experience doing that. And there's nothing for me. There's nothing better than serving someone else and understanding that you have a hand in helping them get to where they want to go. Obviously, with their gratitude and their appreciation for you, and that you not asking for anything at all in return, in nothing at all. And that's exactly how I coach. So, anyway, guys, that's our thought you should know moment. That is the end of our show. And what I will tell you for sure is that this show, guys, has impacted my life in ways that I didn't think it would. And so because of that, I hope that this has impacted your life in a lot of ways as well. Because honestly, that's why I try to bring it to you on a weekly basis. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this. Okay. So anyway, all that to be said, guys, we're going to wrap this show up like we always do. So please let everything, I mean, absolutely everything you do be done in love. Because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes this world go round. Guys, I'll catch you next time, next week. I might or might not have a guest on the show next week, but if I do, I'll let you know ASAP. If I don't, I ain't gonna tell you nothing at all. Anyway, I'm gonna get off the show. I'm gonna go work out because, side note, I am looking to really elevate my game. Just a little tidbit about me: looking to elevate my game as a women's college basketball referee. And so I gotta get a little bigger. I'm about 140 pounds soaking wet or so. So I'm trying to add a little bit of muscle mass. And the next 4 or 5 months are going to be a nice little grind for me, and see what I can do on that front. So prayers, thoughts, advice, whatever you have for that, let me know what you got. But anyway, I'm going to go hit the gym, and then I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.